saw a friend of mine posted a meme yesterday that said, I love being called woke by people who clearly slept through 8th grade civics class. Um, and so I think there is an element of we don't we don't know what causes the conditions until we're aware of what causes the conditions. And and so it's not necessarily we want things to be this way so much as we don't always have a framework for how they could be different. I think
Mm,
often we're kind of like, man, this is rough. It's a shame there's nothing we can do about it. Because the messaging we get is this is too big a problem.
mm,
I don't know if you've ever read any of Naomi Klein's work. She does a lot of work around environmental change. And she said,
mm,
most of the climate scientists I talk with actually think we still have time to turn this around. And the messaging we're getting is it's too late, which is very disempowering,
mm,
and causes us to be like, well, I guess I can't do anything, which means that companies can keep making money doing things the way they are because they don't have to change anything.
mm,
But her point is if we become aware that there is time to change things and that there are things we can do, we will do them. It's that we're constantly being barraged with a message of this is just the way it is.
mm,
There's plenty of things in this world I just took for granted until someone's like, it hasn't always been that way. It doesn't have to be that way.
mm,
I needed someone to tell me.
mm, mm. Is that true though of power dynamics? Because a lot of what we're talking about in this
Hmm.
conversation, I think, comes back. I think you would agree, comes back to
Yeah.
power dynamics, right? You said it
Yeah.
before. It's the people in power that dictate things. And I'm no expert on history by any means, but as far as I can tell, those power dynamics have been at play and caused a lot of the pain and suffering throughout history. So when you think of it, I guess I'm going back to that cynical view again. Like, what gives you hope? What gives you optimism when it
Yeah.
seems like we can look throughout history and see the same problems in
Yeah.
different cultures, in different countries, in different places, different time periods at all times? Where does the hope come from for you?
Yeah. So for me, I really didn't love this expression during Occupy, the whole thing about the 99%.
Mhm,
But the more I've sat with it, the more I've been like, but it's true.
mhm,
So one of the union organizing, and I know some people are like, ugh, unions, but one of the most interesting union organizing campaigns I've seen is some of my colleagues who have reached out to tech workers. These are folks making a couple $100,000 a year, which for many of us feels like a lot of money, and saying to them, you keep identifying with the CEO
mhm,
of Apple, of Google, of whatever. You have more in common with the people who are cleaning up after you, right?
mhm,
Like the custodial staff, the cooking
mhm,
staff, um, and also you let's be honest, they're being exploited. They're getting paid, minimum wage when this company's making billions. But you're also being exploited because you're working 60 to 80 hours a week. You're getting paid a lot of money.
mhm,
But my boo worked at Apple, and his boss had 3 heart attacks by the time he was 60. And so to organize a workers campaign that says, hey, tech workers making a couple 100,000, you should be in solidarity with the low wage workers because you're also all of you are being
mhm,
exploited. And all of you deserve better because this company can afford more than that.
mhm,
And they're trying to tell you you're very different so that you don't join forces. To me, that was a really beautiful campaign because I saw a lot of people from my own South Asian community get involved in it, and find a certain amount of pride in realizing, oh, I have, part of what I left behind was family who had to do low wage work. These are actually my people. They may speak Spanish instead of Urdu, but these are my people. And to build cross-cultural solidarity, most people wouldn't think that a person making 40,000 a year and a person making 200,000 a year are on the same side,
mhm,
but they absolutely can be. And I've
mhm,
seen it happen. I've seen it happen. Showing Up for Racial Justice does amazing anti-racism work, and they've been going into Appalachia and saying to poor white folks, hey, a lot of the reasons you're struggling are the same reasons Black people are struggling. When we say Black Lives Matter, it's not that your life doesn't, it's that we're trying to pass laws that make their life better that will also make your life better
mhm,
because
mhm,
you're dealing with a lot of the same things they are. I've
mhm.
been really inspired by those kinds of campaigns. They take some work because they are going against the dominant culture because the folks who own the media and the folks
Yeah,
who own the
yeah,
companies are the same people at this point. Um,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so we have to dig around to find those different ways of looking at the world that can give us a sense of our own power and connection.
See, I'm going to say some. What the point I want to make here is again the nuance and the complexity of this,
Yeah.
of what makes all this so challenging. But inevitably, I recognize there's going to be sensitive parts of this, so I'll say that up front. But to that point, it's like it's the challenge of this, right? Because Black Lives Matter is a great example. Let's focus on the phrase of it, the concept of it. Um, I personally believe it's completely reasonable and rational to state that and make that a thing that's in people's faces because to me, there's a lot of evidence throughout, at least just even looking in this country, in the US, throughout the history, that there's a lot of evidence that Black lives did not matter nearly as. I mean,
Right.
you can go, you talked about a town in Boston,
Right.
Dudley, you can go countless towns across America where people have
Sure.
been mistreated. Now,
Mott
it's
Haven
not
in New
just
York.
even
Yeah.
in New
Mhm.
York, right? You can go throughout the list. Now, it's not just Black people, but
Yeah.
certainly the history of slavery and the civil rights movement and Jim Crow and all that stuff, it's caused that. So it's completely reasonable to say Black Lives Matter because it's justified, it's reasonable.
Mhm.
Once you say that, though, inherent in that is you create a bit of a divide, which is exactly what we're talking about right now, which is that actually we're much more similar, right? It's
Mhm.
it's it's 1% of the population that arguably is the problem, 99% are together. I'm not by any means saying people that say Black Lives Matter are
Mhm.
causing the problem. What I'm
Right.
stating is that that's the complexity of this. They're saying something that's completely reasonable and fair, but in
Yeah.
some ways works against what you were just saying to try and make us all feel united.
Mhm.
What the hell do we do about that?